a glimpse of who you are, what you do.
Okay. I'm Michelle Peters. I work in the oil and gas industry with a tech focus. I work in our chief digital office, which is actually new to Oventive, where I work. My role is the director of analysis and strategy. And so we kind of focus on the tech side of the oil and gas world, whether it's in our field operations or in our back office. And my team does a lot of the BA, PM, kind of softer side of the tech skills. And we also work on the strategy for our organization around technology. I have worked at Oventive for 17 years, so most of my adult career I've been there. But I'm also a wife and mother of 3 kids. My kids are 10, 9, and 6. So busy at home and busy at work. So I'm a Girl Scout mom, been the troop leader with a good friend for the last 5 years, and we do all the cookie sales and all that. So
what is the big cookie? There was a gluten-free cookie. Is that new? Is there any new cookie this year?
Nothing new, but they are retiring the s'more cookies. So I would anticipate maybe we see something new next year.
Yeah. Okay. So the retiring s'more. And what is the most popular? Do you know? Do you have any idea what the most popular cookie is? I was gonna say Thin Mints. Yeah. I was saying, in the world of Venn diagram, I picture like when you put the circles on in the middle, there's Thin Mints and Samoas in the middle.
Yep, and tag-alongs.
And then your tag-alongs are got to be pretty close somewhere. And then your trefoils are out there, and the people still like those. Those are kind of the OG, but they're in the peripheral. Yeah. And then whatever new ones are out there, we're still kind of a little bit weary of those guys.
Yeah.
We finally got it together and had our first meeting at your location in 2023, right down in Denver.
Yeah, because COVID kind of slowed a lot down on the user group side of the world, but we wouldn't have been involved anyways because we actually didn't implement till right around COVID. So we implemented D365 around that time, and I helped lead that project for Oventive.
Yeah.
So I was definitely looking to sort of join into the user group community and leverage our investment in that platform. So it was great connecting and being part of this.
And it took, like I said, it did take a long time to get. I mean, because I've organized the user group locally since 2013, and when 2020 and boom, and then Colorado shut down, and we had some virtual stuff, but then bringing it back, even that 2022 meeting that we did, which we thought, it's going to be a movie. It's Doctor Strange and the Marvel, and people are going to flock to this. And like 3 people showed up. Well, 5 to be fair. The leader from each product track, BC and GP and CE and me, and there's like, and the 2 speakers. So it was like just the people that organized it and the potential speakers were able to make it. Because I think even in 2022, there was still that reticence to get out in the world and in mass. So it took I think it was the perfect time because our first meeting was gangbusters.
Right after things, we're feeling like a little more comfortable. I think it's been so nice the last couple of years that it has felt a little bit more back to normal, and we've had tons of user group meetings, tons of things in person. So it's really been great to kind of grow for Oventive our knowledge base around the products and what else we could do on our platform.
I mean, I think as a society, we've gotten better with the virtual. Like I know there were Zoom meetings and Zoom existed, and there was that stuff happening prior to COVID. And I think early on it felt so clunky and so weird. And so I think there's still nice to have that hybrid to be able to do things quickly and, have that face-to-face and that, bit more collaboration perhaps.
Yep.
But there is something still magical about being in person. I don't know why, it just is. There's just, it's just harder online than it is to do in person. So I do appreciate that ease and that ability to get back in front of people.
Yeah, it's hard to connect as well virtually. So I've really appreciated all the in person. At Oventive, we actually have been in person for most of the time since COVID, and so I think we've been able to keep a really great culture, which is great to have.
Yep. So talk a little bit about 17 years. I was just talking to another group, and somebody mentioned that typically in life you have 7 careers. I don't know how true that is, but that's what this person mentioned. And I'm not far from that. I think I've got, like, if I had to count careers, like not goofy jobs, I was, and I had basically three, maybe four, counting right out of high school. So it's short, but four distinct moments where I was working in an industry and then moved to something completely different, which is
Yep.
I think also interesting. But you've 17 years in one career even. So talk about that journey from when you started, what you were doing to where you are now.
Well, I think that's something special about Oventive is that there is a lot of opportunity to move around. It's really encouraged and supported. So I started pretty much out of college in our marketing department, which isn't like a traditional marketing department. You think like doing a product marketing. It's more oil and gas marketing, so selling oil and gas product in the market.
Okay.
So I did that for a couple of years, and then I moved into finance after that, and I was there for a long time, but always changing roles. So I would say
Mm.
I was in a team probably 1-2 years at the most, and then I would go to a different role, which was really exciting for me to keep learning and growing. I have an accounting and a marketing degree. So I was able to see a lot of our business by moving to different roles and
Mm.
being open to trying something maybe I wasn't as comfortable with or didn't know well.
Was that your
Um,
choice was it your choice? Like, hey, I hit that 2 year period and I'm a little stagnant. What was your thought behind it? Like, was it just you saw opportunities and went for it?
I'd say both. Like sometimes it was something I applied for, but sometimes it was, hey, we have this opportunity. Would you be interested?
Mm.
And usually I'd say yes. I think that's a great thing to try.
Yeah.
So I think openness to trying something you're not as familiar with is really valuable in your career. You grow a lot of skill sets. I mean, about around adaptability and being able to take new challenges, but also you learn your knowledge base.
Yeah.
So I've learned a lot of our industry through that. And then, um, and most of that time I did spend a lot of time focused on whether it was like a technology enhancement or process improvements. Always doing that in my roles, whether it was a technology based role or not. I've
Hmm.
always sort of been passionate about finding the best way to do your work. So I always had that mindset. So when we did our D365 implementation, I was asked to work on that full time and help lead that. And that was sort of maybe my push into the more technology side of the world. So since we did that implementation, which would have been 2020, 2021, I've been more on the technical side of things, but more, I would say, more of the softer side
Hmm.
of the world. So skills in project management, business analysis, and trying to bring technology to the best place for the organization. Because I think those people side of things are just as important as the tools you're using.
Yeah. And so when you started, based on the age of your kids, you didn't have kids in that first 17 years. Then your kids
Mhm.
come along. How did that, was that immediate impact? And again, there's a lot of variables here on how your company, what kind of leverage they give you, but how did you go about thinking about bringing kids into that career path?
Um, I guess I work for a great company that really supports family and kind of making your career grow over the years, even if your life changes outside of work. So when I had kids, I did take some extra time off.
Mm.
I think with all three kids, I came back part time for a while. Sometimes it was longer, sometimes it was shorter, but they were really flexible about that. Um, so I'd say once I had kids, I became comfortable with a non-linear career path. So I think life is cyclical, and maybe a couple of years you have some really heavy work in the office or in your job, but then you see there's a cycle where the second kid really is putting some stress on at home, so I need to take a step back from my job. Um, and Oventive is it really let me grow both personally and professionally
Mm.
by leaning into those swings. So yeah, I've been in management roles, non-management roles, full time, part time, all sorts of things over the last 17 years to kind of balance those two places, personal and professional.
Yeah, getting that support system in place is important, right? I mean, it's like I said, you've got a great company that does, I just worry about like people who don't have a good company. I mean, I think there's always a point at which you do have to decide, is this the company for me? Can I,
Mhm.
what proactive steps can I take to get to that company that does maybe provide better support, better flexibility? How do I create that in my life when perhaps it's not there?
Yeah. Some of the user group stuff is a great way to make some of those connections. Like,
Mm,
I think the more people you know and the more connections you have, you can find opportunities maybe that you didn't know about or
yeah.
that might be a better fit. So I would really encourage people to network and make connections, because you never know what's out there if you don't sort of
Yeah.
explore.
And that doesn't matter, in whatever community. It could be not just at, say, Dynamics user group, your church
Yeah.
community, your Girl Scouts, whatever it is, wherever you can get in and be a part of a community. Typically,
Yeah.
that community is a great buffer to provide extra resource where you might not necessarily find it otherwise. You don't know where that you might find your next opportunity at a career, but through a friend,
Hmm.
a mother of somebody else in Girl Scouts, or a father you met at PTO or whatever. Just you got all these different places you can integrate, but it's the key is finding those places so you do expand your community out. So you maybe have that again when you are stretching, like, hey, I am stressing. I got 2 kids now, and boy, this company's just not supporting me, and I'm feeling this. I either have to leave completely or
Yeah.
go about. Have you ever had to so you've only been an inventive, but has there been a point where
Mhm.
you've had to step up and say, hey, I need to, like, what's that conversation like?
I think I probably have, in places where I maybe the home life has gotten heavy.
Mhm.
I have said, hey, can I make a change here? Um, so I have done that, and they've been super supportive. I know probably not everyone has that where they work. I've also had great leaders, great mentors at Oventive that sort of help that conversation or that
Yeah.
decision to raise your hand and say I need something different. Um, so yeah, I have definitely had to do that, and I think it's advocating for what you need to make your life balance because there's so many different variables. That a lot of things can happen outside of the office that you need to balance, and finding a place that supports that is really important.
Or even, setting the expectation with your team, your manager, maybe just, think about that if if you are in a position where, hey, I don't know, maybe you don't know if your company supports you, but you
Yeah,
do have to ask. And perhaps as you're going through, maybe you're preparing to have a family, or you're feeling that stress build up. I would offer that don't wait to the last minute. I don't know what you feel about
yeah,
that, but if you wait
prepare.
to yeah, kind of start preparing and again trying to figure out, you know, will the company support you? Just maybe start poking around at that and asking the right questions and building that up, so it isn't just all of a sudden you run in as like, I need 5 weeks off, right? I need to do this, and that's all of a sudden like a surprise that don't be afraid to open the conversation up even before it happens. Like, hey, in
Definitely.
5 years I might have a family. Let's start talking about what that looks
What
like.
would this look like for me?
Yeah,
Yeah,
what does this look like for us? I love working here. I hope you love what I'm doing. Just being honest about that and get the buy-in. And maybe, who knows, you might end up being a change, lightning rod in your own company at the end of the day, for other people. Like, this
yeah.
person blazed the trail because they asked and they kind of pushed it just enough to make some change.
And I try as a leader too to make sure that conversations maybe they're not always personal, maybe sometimes they're more career focused, but um, regular conversations about what are you looking for in your role or in the things you want to learn and grow with, and how can I help you accomplish those? Like, you can't always make things work the next day for
Hmm.
someone on your team for their aspirations, but as a leader, I really prioritize making sure that I'm having those conversations so that maybe there is the opportunity to talk about that,
You
and
bet.
it's not uncomfortable and it's natural.
I agree with you 100%. If you're not having that conversation, then you won't know. And it goes beyond, like, I feel like a lot of times I've been in situations where you're in an interview or with a manager, like, tell me where you want to be in 5 years. And that to me is like, just, I'm really, to be honest, I don't like that question. I
Because I
like,
don't know.
because I don't know. I like the
Yeah,
question. I like to say, where do you want to be in like 2 months from now, 3 months from now?
yeah,
How can we just propel you? Because that's so that's so manageable.
yeah.
I can help you be a better project manager in 3 months. I can help you
Right.
be a better developer or be a better support person or whatever. I can do this in this 3 month. We can beat these 3 months, chunks left and right. And
Yeah.
then, yeah, 5 years from now, you're going to look back and go, like, wow, I was way down there. I'm way up here now. And you've got to, it's a much different path and feel than just kind of thinking this nebulous, 10
How
years
am I
from
going to
now.
get there?
Yeah, what you're going to get, I want to be a leader. I just don't get a real feel for what somebody's going to do.
And I often like to ask what kind of topics they're interested or the
Mm,
areas of the business they're interested in, because oftentimes I can direct work that way that maybe fulfills some of that learning.
yeah.
Sometimes you think you're interested in something and you're not. Even leadership, like if you say to your leader, I want to be a manager someday, getting maybe some small opportunities to mentor someone or to direct the work of an intern, whatever it might be, can give you a taste of that, because not everyone's interested in the same things, or the things you think you're interested in, you might actually not like.
Yeah.
So yeah, I try to get themes or try to figure out where people might be interested in and see if we can test that out a little bit.
Yeah. So you mentioned support, and obviously your company sounds really supportive. Obviously, there's further circles of support that come to play. I know that's a real thing. I think there's this impetus on women to be the sole caregiver in some instances, like old school family units where man works and he comes home and he's got and mom's taking care of kids, and that's certainly shifted a lot. But there's still lots of families that still operate that way. But what role does what other support roles do you have? Because I've talked to some people and like it's extensive. Some people have
Mhm.
moved, like literally. I moved to be closer to my parents, like they're down the block.
Yeah.
So I've got this really close support. So what's your support system like outside of work?
I do have a lot of close family. I grew up in the Midwest, but my parents are now out in Colorado. My brother, my husband's parents are out here. So we have a lot of family support, which is great and probably attributes to a lot of the flexibility that I'm allowed to have to work longer hours or
Mm-hmm.
whatever it might be. Um, Also, my husband, like he handles a lot at home. I do travel quite a bit, so it is a heavy thing for the family, and he's self-employed, so he definitely takes the burden at home.
Mm-hmm.
So he's probably one of the key reasons, and maybe our relationship and how we communicate and how we prioritize family really probably helps with our success. We're a
Sure.
team, and that's really important to us.
Again, it sounds like the communication is important, right? I mean, it's
Yep.
not just you saying I'm taking this on. Likely you talked about it. You figure out, okay, if I do take this on, how will this work? How will this thing fall in place? And then being flexible when the unknown crops up, knowing
Yeah.
that that's going to happen.
Yeah, and we do a lot of planning together, and I mean it's something that I enjoy and that is a skill set for me is planning. So maybe that my husband just sort of like benefits from that. But usually like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we sit down, look at the calendar for the next week, make sure we have everything covered, meal planning, like all of that we
Mm,
do on a weekly basis to make
yeah,
sure we're both on the same page of who's covering what. Can I flex my schedule at work to handle whatever it might be? Um, so we do a lot of talking through how our day is going to work. We have a shared calendar that
hmm
everything goes on there. A lot of little tricks to make sure that the well-oiled machine keeps going.
yeah. I mean, I do a lot of traveling now, and I couldn't imagine doing it. I didn't have to face that. I did some
Yeah,
travel, but it was like once a year to Summit. Excuse me, basically once a year to Summit. And that was it. So that was like other than that, I might go see my folks for a weekend or something, but very little
yeah,
like consistent travel to interrupt a family, unit. And also pretty been lucky to have flexibility at work, which I think is
mhm.
important. Again, I was going to ask, like, so, when you go about the planning, do you build in space for certain things? Like, hey, I know we've got these things up. I've got to work full day, but maybe because work is flexible, I can work in the morning, go do this thing, this event at school, which happened at 1 to 3, and then come home and work some more. And is that the kind of planning you're going through? That kind of
Yeah.
level of planning?
Yeah, and so like I definitely make sure that if there's something that I need to be at, I'm getting it on my work calendar. We do, have a great work environment that does allow for some of that flexibility. It's not I can't go to everything for my
Yeah.
kids, but I try to make it to as much as possible. And I do a lot of help outside of school or outside of you know extracurricular activities and that sort of thing. So I am pretty involved with my kids' stuff.
Yeah.
So just have to make sure that it's blocked out on my calendar at work so that that's a priority. Sometimes things fall through the cracks, but pretty diligent about that so that I
Yeah.
can make it all happen.
Yeah. I remember once, I mean, this is a while ago, got cross path, our paths got crossed, and I was supposed to pick up the kids for after daycare, and I was at work and got a call. It was like, I don't, I just got, we were in the middle of an implementation. I don't know what it was, but I was just
Yeah.
like totally, and it was the worst feeling ever. I can't believe it's like, oh my gosh. They're like, yeah, it's getting close to closing time and you guys haven't shown up yet. It's like, oh my God. So yeah, I get, it's like having that level of, you know, planning is got to be
Yeah.
really important, especially with three kids at the ages where they're all kind of, I'm sure, involved in,
Activities and
yeah, so many activities these days, and
and
keeping them
even
all.
like last week I was out at one of our field offices, and Monday and Wednesday were really heavy for activities for our kids. Probably needed a two parent drop off type
Yeah.
schedule. So arranged ahead of time for my mom to help on Monday
Yeah.
and my husband's mom and dad to help on Wednesday. So we had sort of some coverage to make it work. So if we weren't looking a week or two ahead, it would be hard to make that work. But because we've planned it out and talked about it, we had enough bodies to make all the driving work.
Yeah. Regardless of, I mean, it's such a silly thing to think about in personal life, but planning is planning, and
Yeah,
it does make life easier so you're not putting that extra level of stress on yourself in the moment. Yeah, maybe it's slightly stressful to sit down and figure things out, or you don't want to do it because you'd rather watch TV or read a
yeah.
book or whatever it is you do in life. But
Well, and
it's
I
a
was
fact.
talking to a friend the other day, and she was asking me about lunches, and I was like, yeah, my kids make all their lunches on Sunday, and then we just give them out throughout the week based on if they have cold lunch or hot lunch. And she's like, I never thought about that. And I was
So,
like, oh yeah, we do this on Sunday so
yeah,
that during the week it's less hectic. So
yeah.
little things like that can really make a difference in your morning.
And once it becomes a habit, like, hey, this is what we do Sundays from
Yeah.
4 to 5. We sit back and we crank out our lunches. That's
Yep.
kind of the way it rolls, and then it just becomes a thing, and you don't think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's sort of the norm.
Yeah. And you mentioned flexibility a lot, and I know that again, it's so interesting to hear. One of the things that I consistently hear, and one of the reasons I love kind of telling these stories, is to keep showing what tech means. So when somebody, a young girl, young boy, whoever is looking at what it means to have a career in tech, it's not just a programmer. It's not just a person fixing a computer. Your career's been all over the place and connected to tech in lots of ways, and disconnected and then reconnected. And
Mhm.
this kind of idea that once you get in a lane, it doesn't have to be the lane. You can, and I've done this too. Even in my tech career, I started as a tech support person, but kind of ran that pathway pretty quickly. Like
Yeah.
it was just kind of getting boring. I was like, yeah, another computer to fix. I can, it's like I'm doing this is too easy, and so I needed to pivot. And so just kind of being self-aware of that, and also a great point you made, and being open to opportunities as they're coming to you. Um, just any other thoughts around just that, the idea of keeping yourself open to that?
Taking a job, like if someone asks you about a job, or if you apply for a job that's you think like outside of your lane, I guess I just would really encourage people to pursue it. I think some of the best career decisions I made were taking a step outside of the lane that I was in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the more you learn, the more valuable you are, the more connections you make. If you work in other pieces of your organization, or if you work in other companies within your realm, you have a lot more connections. You can probably get things done faster, and those connections are really important for good work.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would just really encourage people to pursue them.
And listen up, kids. You get to be like Michelle, and you get to jump on the G7 and fly around instead of a
I don't
private
know
jet,
about
right?
that.
I do love the commitment that your company's made to community as well. I mean, it's rare. I mean, I've seen a lot of companies in community, and I think it's rare to see as much commitment as y'all have made to the local community and the national, attending events and being active.
Yeah, it's been really fun to grow our knowledge in. I mean, we made a huge investment in the Microsoft space, So using it the most we can, making the best use out of our investment. I think we've done a lot of cool things since our go live too, which has been exciting.
Hmm.
Um, it was a difference for us, and I don't know, maybe a lot of people who are listening to this podcast are used to just traditional software, or maybe people are more used to like the consistent updates that Microsoft offers. But where we came from, we had been on the same system for 20 years. And so, we
Yeah.
were doing upgrades only every couple of years. And it was like a crazy investment, a crazy amount of time to do those upgrades. And so,
Interruption. I mean, just all of it.
yes.
Yeah.
So moving into the Microsoft space, everything moves so much more quickly, but that is a great thing
Yeah.
because then you're taking advantage of the stuff that's coming out, whether it's Copilot or a new module or whatever it might be. And it's all included in your licensing already, or most of it.
Yeah.
So I think that's really exciting.
And we've
I,
talked
I
about that in Denver.
yeah.
I was just going over, thinking about our session on, making the most of the investment, because
Oh
yeah, you
yeah.
spent millions of dollars in time and effort, and then to let it sit stagnant is silly. I mean, it's just constantly, it's evolving. There's so much to it to learn, doing it, whether you're doing it, in the company or you're doing it in community. There's just a ton going on out there. Don't want any guests choking, on the,
No.
yeah, I've not lost a
No
guest
luck.
yet, so can't ruin my track record. Was it like water or yeah? Because I do
I
that.
know.
I get water down the wrong
I
pipe.
have a little drainage. Maybe I have a
Oh,
little cold or something. So
yeah.
that was,
Cool. Anything else we didn't talk about in the just in in the pursuit of and the kind of the navigation of a really fun technology career you've had? Again, love the story sharing about the building that flexibility and finding your path and asking and just kind of being proactive. It seems to be a common theme, and folks doing this and doing it successfully.
I think one other thing to highlight is, and this is outside of career advice, but I think financial discipline
Mm,
is one of the most important things to give you flexibility in life.
yeah.
Because I've always, not always, but I mean, for most of my career, I've been able to say, yeah, I'll move jobs, or yeah, I'm going to go part time, or yeah, I'm going to take more time off with my kids. Um, but part of that is the privilege of being able to do that. My husband and I have been together 15 years, almost 16 years. And for pretty much all of our marriage, we've lived on one paycheck.
Mm,
We sort of make that our standard so that we're providing ourselves a lot of flexibility,
yeah.
saving early. And if you're any age, just starting now, whatever you start now is going to pay off tenfold in a few years. So I guess I just really encourage that discipline in life so that you can have the flexibility to take the opportunities when they
You
come.
bet. It's like going back. I've found a crazy old newspaper clipping from like 1906, and it came out of something called the Youth's Companion. It was like an old magazine from that time. It had some affiliation with a Rotary Club or maybe a church group. I can't remember. I looked it up. I just can't remember exactly. But anybody wondering could look it up.
Yeah.
But it was just a really cool saying. It hit home for me, and kind of what you're saying to some degree, in that it basically was defining luck. And like people would say like, oh, Michelle, you're so lucky that you can travel, or that you can do this. And that's great. I mean, and it's just something we say as people, like it's just a thing to say. But at the end of the day, luck is so much more than that. Luck is all the things wrapped up in one. It's perseverance, and it's dusting yourself off, and it's making choices, and that's wrapped up all together becomes luck. And the same thing, the resilience, like you said, that you're building in flexibility in your life. It took some dedication on you and your, I mean, sure, you made concessions like, hey, we can't do this, we are working on this one salary. And I know another lady, one of my early tech mentors that hired me, she was great about this. She said, yeah, we live off of my salary. My husband's salary goes right into the bank, or vice versa, whatever it was. One of them was going right in the bank and like untouched, and we don't, it's just not
Yep.
even a consideration. We have to survive on this salary somehow. So it means whatever we do, because this is going to give us that longer life flexibility,
Yeah.
and be able to hey, if I do want to take a year off because I'm burnt out, or your husband wants to take a year off because he's burnt
Mhm.
out, we can say, you know what, we're cool. We can pull a little bit of this stuff we've been saving and make this happen.
Yeah. I mean, life is time is our commodity, our currency, and we only have so much of it. And so life should be enjoyed. And I think a lot of times, or my husband and I talk about this often, is the intersection of hard work and opportunity is where you find that luck.
Yeah.
And that hard work, takes a lot of time, takes a lot of diligence. You have to probably say no to things,
Yeah.
but then you're ready for that opportunity when it presents itself.
Yeah.
So I think using your time as a currency and using it in the ways that's most valuable to the things you want to achieve in this world is really critical. And my another planner moment with my husband, but we've talked even, what do we want our retirement to look like? What do we want to do? When do we want to do that? And how do we set ourselves up for that? I'm
Right.
very far away from that, but at the same time, the things that I'm doing today are going to make that a reality.
If you wait till you're 60 to start thinking about it, maybe what you want to attain is unattainable.
Yep. And
There's no harm in thinking about it now.
and it's not always just financially. When for me, when my kids are out of the house, what else is going to bring me joy? What other things am I going to need in life to find an enjoyment and happiness? And how do I set myself up for those things,
Yeah.
in the next 10, 20 years? So lots to think about, but I think if you think about where you want to be and then work hard to that direction, the opportunity will present itself at some point.
Yeah, I think such fair and logical advice that people just overlook. I think we get caught up in the fantasy of staring at other people, like you said. She's so lucky. You hear this a lot. Oh, I wish I could be Taylor Swift. She's so lucky. She works hard. You ask her, it's not luck. You probably wouldn't want her job, like 12-hour days for rehearsing. I mean, once you got into it, you're like, wow, this is actually his hard work. This isn't luck. This isn't easy. That, all this conversion, like you said, this hard work gives you the opportunity, but it's still hard work, and it's still, worth it. Find your path in that. Find, where that balance is for you.
And you talked about comparison, like comparing yourself to Taylor Swift or your neighbor or whoever it might be. I think that's the thief of joy.
Yeah,
if you
100%.
compare yourself. So, I mean, it's probably been 3-4 years. I've been off all social media except for LinkedIn. I do that for work purposes, but I think it's worth thinking about how does that affect my mental health, or how I want to achieve things in this world. Does it set the boundaries way farther than I'm comfortable with? Like, I think taking away some of that comparison can help you stay a little more grounded.
You bet.
And I love to ski. Anything outside. We are trying to visit all the national parks with our kids.
Yeah. How many have you hit so far?
We've done 21.
21. How many are there?
63.
Okay.
Right now they add more over the years. But so we have a few planned this year.
Awesome.
And, it's a great adventure for our family.
Yeah. Cool. Well, Michelle, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure. I think I was telling somebody else, we rarely talk kind of this in depth. It's usually we're talking about other things or business or whatever. So it's kind of fun to kind of, jam on something different.
It's been great
to
chat.
I appreciate you jumping on with me, and look forward to seeing you soon somewhere, well, with cookies, but somewhere else in the community as we get our next user groups kicked up. And cool. Well, thanks again, Michelle. I appreciate it. And again, talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Yep, you bet. Bye.
Bye.